Welcome back to the Unstuck movement. This platform was created to help you find big breakthroughs in your life. These are true testimonies of breakthrough. And today I have the incredible Mike Henry Sr. with us on the podcast. Mike, I love to jump in with a big question right away. This is a big question, by the way. And this question is going to kind of lay the groundwork for the breakthrough for you in your life and how you're helping other people find breakthrough in their life and in their business. How can we make our careers count for eternity? What a big question.
Yeah, it is. And I think, it goes back to, I should have thought of the verse, Colossians 4. Uh, I'm having trouble remembering the verse reference. I'm sorry, 2 Corinthians 10, verses 3-5. Taking every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. We have to train our minds to use our thoughts during the day and use them and point them to God. And that's what we try and do in Follower of One.
What a challenging thing to do, is it not?
It is. It is very hard to do.
To take every thought captive. What a challenge. And to accept that challenge is something, another huge piece to the puzzle. So, okay, before we go any further into that, because I love where we're going right now, I just want to welcome everyone. This platform is to help you with breakthrough in your life and in your business. Sponsored by the Connected Leaders Academy. Check out connectedleadersacademy.com. Mike Henry, Sr., founder of Follower of One. He created Follower of One to help marketplace Christ followers enjoy working with Jesus. He previously held leadership roles in various industries, and he and his wife reside in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I absolutely love the fact that your whole mission is to help people look at wherever they work as a mission trip, sending the mission trip to the workplace. Now, when we go back to this taking every thought captive, why is this kind of like the overlaying theme? Why is this the overarching principle that you need to carry our careers or make our careers count for eternity?
I'm using my own experience. So I actually started in my career. I graduated from college and I was not a believer of Jesus, not a follower of Jesus. I kind of believed, I claimed that I understood, thought I knew. I called myself a born in America Christian. I wasn't Jewish and I hadn't killed anybody, and I was born in America. And so I thought I was a Christian, but I wasn't following Jesus. And so work absorbed all of my thoughts. When I went to work, I was just locked in. It was everything that I did was, what tasks do I have to do? I remember thinking on Friday, I only want to do the things that keep me from going home. And so I would postpone everything to Monday that I could so that I could leave on Friday. And all of a sudden, the only thoughts that I had were related to work. And I did that for several years until I finally trusted Jesus through frustration. Just out of frustration in my personal life and my career, I got more involved in church. And that's when I learned about salvation being something that Jesus does. And that changed the way that I thought, and it caused me to follow him. But the next day, I was still in this work environment. And now all of a sudden, I'm wrestling with my mind. How do I take my mind and point it towards Jesus in the middle of a task list, or when I'm being chewed out by a customer, or any of those things? How can I do that? And that started me on a 30-year journey of trying to train my brain to be intentional, connected to Jesus while I'm going through my daily job.
So what disciplines did you put in place? Because that's so good, man. And it's right. It's so easy just to get lost in day-to-day everything, especially today with all the distractions we have.
Yes.
It's especially difficult to get so distracted. There's so many things pulling for our attention. But when it comes to work, work consumes most of our life as far as like our physical, where we are during the day and where our head's at during the day. So what did you put in place for yourself that helped you to redirect your focus back to Jesus?
That's a great question. We came up with what we call 5 daily habits, and they're on our website. The first one of those is prayer. And the first prayer that I talk about is the prayer that Isaiah prayed in chapter 6. Here I am, send me. Here I am, Jesus. What do you want me to do next? I feel like
Mm,
that's like clocking in. I always make a time card motion. I'm punching in with my time card to get on the clock using the prayer, Here I am, Jesus. Because once I do that, then the rest of this becomes his problem. Okay,
mm.
Jesus, what would you have me do today? And now I can look at Colossians 3:17 says, whatever I do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord. So now I'm working for Jesus today. I'm on the clock. But the 5 daily habits are prayer, appreciate others, know what we believe, serve others, and speak for ourselves. And we talk about those in Follower of One. That's a way of training our brains to be ready in season and out of season, whatever we're doing in the workplace.
I love that. So you said prayer number one,
Hmm.
appreciate others,
Hmm.
know what we believe,
Yes.
serve others, and what was the fifth one?
The fifth one was speak for yourself.
Mm, okay. So, like this is a journey for people to understand for themselves, right? I want to help people have breakthrough in this episode, but I want to understand your
Uh-huh.
breakthrough through all of this also. So, how this came to be for yourself that you created Follower of One to take the mission trips into the workplace. So, this was something you established over time back 30 years ago when you said you started to really apply this to your own life. What
Hmm.
was that journey like? When did you start seeing these big breakthroughs? And when you started applying, well, I'll start right there. When did you start having these big breakthroughs as
Well,
you started to follow this?
so the very first one, I was I found out that our FedEx guy, this company I worked at was my father's company. And I had an office, but I could see the front door. And the man who sat near the front door had a sick relative. One day that man was gone, and I found out that the FedEx guy had known about his sick relative and was praying for his relative. And that's
Mm,
how I found out that the FedEx guy and I were both Christians. And we started sharing prayer requests every day when he would drop off or pick up. We would share a prayer request or, just not make a nod to one another, just take a few seconds. And, but I remember early on in that job, I was not happy in that job, uh, asking Jesus to bring other Christians around to help me. I felt like I was the only Christian in the company. I didn't know if anybody else was a Christian. And kind of the answer that I got was, well, I can make the FedEx guy come by anytime I want. I'll get you what you need. Stop whining about being the only Christian in the company. God basically saying that, I'm going to send you what you need. You just keep going, keep doing what I say. And so that's was the first action that I remember was Jesus reminding me that he will send people, he will send me resources, he'll do things to help me. My job was to be a minister there.
to be a minister in the workplace, because there's a lot of Christians out there in the workplace who maybe some of them hide that they're Christian, or they just don't feel comfortable talking about it, or they only talk about it maybe with other Christians in the
Mhm.
workplace. How did you start to minister in the workplace? How did you start to bring this integral part of who you are out into your job?
Well, and so, even the way we have them organized, for me, it was figuring out ways to care for other people. Uh, Nobody's ready to be just talked to. For me to walk up and say, "Hey, have you trusted Jesus today?" I'm in the workplace. Work is the context of everything that we do. And so I was trying to find ways to do things that I could do. And prayer was one of those things. I could start praying for people. We actually talk about 3 or 4 kinds of prayers in that prayer habit. The first one being, Here I am. But the second one is praying for other people. Jesus, show me how I can be a blessing to this person. Jesus, help me do something that would make a difference in this person's life. We basically, the 5 daily live in such a way that other people ask us, why are you doing this? You know,
Yeah.
because then we get to tell them about our faith, and we're responding to their question. And so I want to live in such a way and serve people in such a way. In fact, the word most often translated ministry in the New Testament is also translated service. And so I realized that I can just serve people uh, just because I love Jesus.
And I love that, man, because, you know, I think a lot of times we think we have to go out and just thump people over the heads, but that doesn't work at all. Nobody likes being beat over the head with anything.
Uh-huh.
And so, if that's your approach, it's going to be a rough road met with a lot of resistance. But if you just show up for people, right? Just show. That's so true. And I was just talking about this the other day, actually. It's just showing up, just how you. And first of all, you've got to be prepared, right? You've got to be prayed up when you
Yes.
go into work or whatever situation you're
Mhm.
going into, so that you're in the right frame of mind. Your heart's in the right place when you go in, but just showing up consistently. Because whenever I'll just, from my own personal example, when
Mhm.
I first got into my faith and I met my good friend Micah Marshall, my good friend Pastor Keith Deal, they both showed up in my life consistent and different than everybody else that I knew.
Mhm.
And I thought to
Yeah.
myself, like, there's no way these guys are like this all the time. Right. And we weren't, well, Keith and I did talk about Jesus. Mike and I, we really didn't. We just connected and
Yeah.
talked. And I thought, there's no way he's like this all the time. You know, this can't be true. And so the
Uh-huh.
longer you get to know the person, you're like, oh, they are like this all the time. Oh, why? Oh, because they've got Jesus in their life and it's transformed them. So they show up in this really special way that's different from everyone else. And that's what happens, just exactly what you're saying. People start to ask the question because they know something's different. Well, why is this guy different? What's going on here?
Yeah.
And then when they
Well,
find out, now you have an opportunity. When they ask, now you have an opportunity. How did you
yeah.
see that start to change in your workplace environment? So you went through the daily habits of the prayer, appreciating others, knowing what you believe, serving and speaking for yourself. Uh, how did things start to shift? How did things start to change?
Well, it was so part of my early years, I was asking God to put me into ministry. And I ended up deciding that since ministry was service, I can help anybody minister. But I was still trying to figure out how to do all of this. After 9/11, I really started asking God, what was I supposed to do? Because I had spent a few years really concentrating on my career in just leading up to 9/11. And so after 9/11 happened, I realized I wanted to be more eternally focused. And the idea that I got was is that I could start praying for people while I was driving to work. And so I would just mentally walk through the office and pray for people as I was driving to work. And then slowly but surely, I noticed God using little things that I said or things that I remembered about people. And that's kind of where I got the idea about showing appreciation. I can remember details and ask about things. What's important to my coworkers can become very important to me, and that communicates appreciation to them. And then I realized that as I prayed for people, Jesus would have us serve them more. And this was all built around this is another kind of challenge that I had while I was figuring all this out. It seemed like most of what my church always wanted me to do meant that I had to go back to the church for a class or I had to leave work to do something with my faith. I was trying to find ways to do something with my faith while I was still doing my job. I was trying to maximize the time that I had. If I have to work so many hours a week, can I make any of those hours count for eternity?
Hmm.
And so
That's
that's where I got the ideas of appreciating and serving people.
That's really good. I love that. Yeah, especially if you're somebody who's trying to do more, right? You're trying to
Mhm.
fit all of your things into a day. Instead of
Exactly.
compartmentalizing everything, bring them together. And that's really good too, Mike. I love that because sometimes I'll think to myself like, well, who I could pray for 1,000 people right now. Who am I supposed to be praying for? I don't have all day long. I got to do stuff to sit here and pray. What could I? Who could I be praying for? And the way you just said that's really good. It's like, well, who's going to be in my life today? Who am I coming in contact with? And especially in the workplace, this is the same people all the time that you
Yeah.
have an opportunity to build relationship with. And a lot of
Yeah.
times, I don't know if this was you, but I know a lot of people and myself, I went through this like resenting people you worked with, or, oh no, I got to run into this person today. Oh, geez, this person talks too much. Oh, this stuff just like always would come up. And I think we all
Yeah.
experience that in the workplace. So when you start to pray for them, you start to shift your view of them.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, it does. And even since COVID, what we started suggesting to people is just pray down your calendar. You know who you're going to meet with next. Or you can pray as you're answering an email or doing whatever you're doing. If I'm going to work with a vendor on a website, then I can pray for them. I don't have to just pray for a specific group of people. I want to pray for every person I interact with.
Yeah. That's a really, really great way of looking at it. It's a really powerful way of looking at it because that changes your whole day.
Exactly.
And it eliminates a lot of confusion too. And you can, as going back to the beginning of this, like your career counts for eternity because you're sending those prayers up, filling up
Yes.
those prayer bowls for the people that are going to be directly in your life, that are always in your life, because you're working with them. They're around you almost every single day. Now, this is going to this speaking for yourself part, right? In these 5 daily habits, what does the speak for yourself mean to you?
So actually, it's based on the third one, know what you believe. So we actually talk about there's a for people who might remember it in Mark chapter 5, there's a man who has a legion of demons, and they come to this man when they cross the lake, and Jesus expels the legion of demons from the man. They go into a herd of pigs, rush down the cliff, and are all drowned. The man is clothed now in his right mind. People come out from the city and they ask Jesus to leave the region. And as Jesus is leaving, that man says, well, I want to go with you, Jesus. And Jesus said, no, you go back to your people and tell them what great things the Lord has done for you and how he had mercy on you. One sentence of seminary is all that guy got. And he got sent into a hostile land to be a marketplace minister. And so we tell people, come up with and practice under know what you believe, practice a 2-sentence answer to why are you doing this? That also brings Jesus into the conversation. I'm doing this because I follow Jesus. And ever since I started following him, my life is different. That's enough. And then speak for yourself. The fifth one is when someone does ask you that question and you have prepared, make sure that you only use like I and me statements. Once again, they were asking about me, so I tell them about my experience. I'm not been asked to give them the 4 spiritual laws or take them down the Roman road or any of those things. Stay in my lane and do the thing that I was asked to do and help them understand that I am different. Like you said, those guys really are like this all the time, right? It's part of who they are.
I love that because we all know somebody who is long-winded, right? And you're like, oh no. When you ask a question, you're like, oh boy, here we go. And that can be regarding faith or a million other things, right? So you want to be somebody. This is something I talk about when I talk about how do you communicate effectively. Be precise, and being precise means you have to think about what you're saying, and you might have to think about it before you even think about saying it, right? Have something prepared. I love that. Have something prepared. And the best place to speak from is your testimony.
Exactly.
Right. That's why this podcast is true testimonies of breakthrough, because I can say a bunch of stuff. It doesn't mean anything. But if I say my personal experience, this is what happened to me, and this is why I am the way that I am now, you can't take that from me. And it's true. It's real. And people resonate with that authenticity. People resonate with that authenticity. And it's a really powerful, life-changing experience when you meet somebody who is truly authentic, right? I love to talk about impact and how we make an impact on people. And, when you say a word, somebody's face will pop up in your head based on that word. You want to have an impact in a positive way in people's life. So when they think of a
Yes.
Christian, they have a great example in their life. When they
Exactly.
think of somebody who's a servant leader, they want your face should pop up when they think of that
Yeah,
word.
exactly.
I love that. That's so good. So right now we got to take a 60-second quick break to shout out the sponsor of the podcast. When we come back, though, I want to know for you personally, what does it look like? So followerofone.org, when somebody gets involved in this, how does this change how they approach their job on a daily basis? And how do you guys help them walk through that? We'll talk about that in 60
Okay.
seconds.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world, globally, all across the country, high performers, titans of industry. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, this is where you want to be. Join the Connected Leaders Academy today. We are scaling massively. We want to welcome you in. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JASCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
So, Mike, I really love what you do and how you're doing it. And I'm just curious, when somebody gets involved in they want to make their workplace a place for ministry, for their life, a mission trip on a daily basis. How do you walk them through that process of doing that?
Certainly. Well, we created a 2-week exercise that we call the Marketplace Mission Trip, where we challenge people to go to their own job like they're going on an overseas mission trip for 2 weeks. And it's based on the 5 daily habits. We use a brief devotional each morning, and we intersperse Zoom calls in there. So just like if you were on an overseas mission trip, you would talk before you did things and you would talk after you did them to make sure that things are going well. We do that using Zoom calls because we have people from all over the globe that do these marketplace mission trips. We've done 43 of them now. And they're designed to help us put this into practice. In 5 minutes a day, you can read the devotional and start doing this. And then we have a little 30-minute Zoom call where you check in with people and let them know how you're doing. And you can take those mission trips. We don't charge for any of this either. We just invite people to pay it forward after it's over. But people are experiencing that idea that once I clock in, here I am, Jesus starts using me in the lives of the people that I interact with today. And he starts making me aware of this a little bit more, and it creeps up. And slowly but surely, Jesus is present for more of your workday. He's present for the things that you don't necessarily have control over. You're still able to be in those things, looking for ways to serve people and bless them so that they might ask about Jesus.
How has this transformed your life?
Oh, well, so it's been fun for me. It's kind of funny because I was working full time when I first started this. And right after we got approved for our nonprofit status, the music stopped at the company I was located at, and I was no longer employed. And there was no chair for me. And so I started working on this full time and started doing contract work some. It's changed a lot of my thinking, and it's helped me because I want to help believers not live this kind of double life where we do our church stuff when we can, and we do our work stuff when we have to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to help us mix it together. I've met a lot of people. Almost everybody that I've met since we started this community are people that have been involved in a marketplace mission trip, or they've been involved in the online community. And it's exciting to be engaged with believers who we're all working together to try and make this easy for others to transform their minds. It's fun to me to talk to someone who they remember, here I am, Jesus. What do you want me to do today? Is the way that you get back in the game.
Yeah, just showing up. Like I'm here. Put me in, coach.
Mhm.
I'm ready to play. Let's do
Exactly.
this. Like I'm here.
Exactly. There
Use
are
me
no
in it, whatever.
stands. We're all playing.
Yeah, whether we know it or not, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that one of the things that I've been doing recently, and I shouldn't say recently, but I'm doing it a lot more recently, is when I have some sort of negative thought towards somebody, and that might be like just me being maybe jealous of someone, or like
Mhm.
maybe coveting something that they have, or whatever it might be. I'd say 95% of the time catch myself and I'll pray for them. And
Mhm.
it can be that simple. So if you're thinking like, well, how do I do this on a daily basis? How am I going to remember to do this? That's one of the ways that I've remembered to do it. Because that's
Mhm.
the hardest part, is remembering to do it.
Mhm.
But I just notice, and this is the transforming of the mind, right? To take every thought captive. When you notice you're thinking something negative about yourself or about somebody else or about a situation, stop, put that pause
Yes.
in, cancel that out, and replace it with a prayer for the
Exactly.
situation or for the person. How
Exactly.
yeah, how do you help people through the program remember to do this? Because that
Well,
can be the hardest part.
no, that's a great question. The Zoom calls on the Marketplace mission trip, doing any of this with someone else, when someone else knows, the power of the enemy is gone. When we have another friend who knows, when we're interacting with another friend, we have come up with a 6-week way of doing the Marketplace mission trip that you can do in a small group with a workbook. We have a workbook called the Marketplace mission trip that does that.
Cool.
You can find that on our website. We also encourage people to just do it with a friend, or do something with a friend where you're reminding yourself to do this stuff over and over and again. There is one other thing that we have found, and this is part of the reason why we make everything that we do not cost money. When you voluntarily put your money into something, you pay more attention to it. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be. And so we also invite people to donate on recurring donations to Follower of One, because it helps us put our brains there. All
Mhm.
of these things are things that God has kind of built into the way the world works, so that we can remain engaged.
The things you pay for, your attention goes to those places, right?
Mhm.
And that's why do we to tithe? What's the reason for tithing? Well, when you tithe, your attention is going to the thing you're
Mhm.
tithing for. And we can put our attention on so many different things. Our money goes in so many different directions, and a lot of the times we're mindless about where our money goes, right? We,
Mhm.
especially with credit cards and things like that, we don't pay attention necessarily to where all of our money's going. So when you're aiming it in the right
Yeah.
direction, you're being much more thoughtful about where you're putting your finances. That's
Mhm.
really important. I always just say, when you pay attention. So if you're paying for something, you're much more likely to pay attention to it. Like
Yeah.
if I get advice from someone, I might pay attention. If I pay for advice from someone, then I'm more likely to pay
Mhm.
attention to that advice and actually put it into work, because I
Exactly.
put money towards it.
Well, and we go even a step further. I want to keep it as voluntary as possible, because I don't want it to become transactional. This
Mm,
is not the exchange of an experience for a fee.
mhm.
The experience is something that we all get to do every day. I mean, you couldn't charge people a lot of money and then tell them, "Oh, we just pray here I am every day, and the rest of this is Jesus's problem." It's not like that's worth thousands of dollars. And yet it costs a lot of money. We have a staff, we have team members who are helping. And our dream is, actually, we started doing these Marketplace mission trips with churches,
Mm.
because when we can help a local body do this, and they all know each other, or some of them know each other before it starts, they enjoy it more and they get more out of it. And it's something that we're helping the local church do.
Yeah, I could see this being really great for like men's and women's groups, like to get together and put this in action in those groups, and everybody goes out from that group and says, okay, tomorrow when I go to work, this is
Mhm.
my job at work. Because that's always the hardest thing about your walk in life is like, sometimes it's just a Sunday morning thing. If it's just a Sunday morning thing, then the rest of your week is just the world just wreaking havoc, and
Yeah,
your head's not in the right place, your heart's not in the right place, and that can lead you in a bunch of different directions that you don't want to go in. But if
exactly.
your mind is on it, and it's something that you're held accountable for with somebody else, then you're much more likely to execute on it. Who were
Yes.
you, like, say, way 30 years ago, or, maybe 40 years ago? Who were you? Were you always a follower? Were you always a believer? Who were you back then before you really started to implement this stuff into your own life?
Well, so I became a Christian. I was about 30 years old. Before that, I wanted to be one of the smartest people in the world. I thought I was. And, it was just a matter of time till the world figured that out. But
That's good.
my first 3 or 4 jobs out of college, every time I made more money, I was more miserable. And so I felt like I was either gonna be broke or poor. And that's what got me to go check out church. My wife was a real Christian. She understood her faith and that Jesus was the only means to salvation. I didn't know that. I was trying to work out my own deal. And my goal in life was to be the third to last guy into heaven. I didn't want to be last or next to last, but I was aiming for third to last. I didn't want to work any harder than I had to.
All right. Yeah.
And after I became a Christian and I started enjoying my faith, and it's like, how do I do this Monday through Saturday? Because I was struggling with a brain that had been trained for 30 years to live a different way.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how all this happened, was me working through this and struggling with it. For the first 10 years, I spent a lot of time asking the church to help me. And the answer was always that I had to leave work and go back out to my church for some class or something, or Promise Keepers, or some other conference, or some other training program. And that was frustrating to me. And then the early Faith at Work movement was also a disappointment to me, because much of it was aimed at entrepreneurs and people who had discretionary time in their calendars. And I always worked for someone else. And so I needed something that I could do while I was still honoring all my commitments and doing all my things. And so that took a few more years for me to figure that out.
Oh man, Mike, that's really good. And so you're saying about, like, the church would tell you to come back to the church to take more classes. There's nothing wrong with those things. There's nothing wrong with
No.
like going and being with people in the church and learning and growing together. That's amazing. It's a wonderful thing, but it does not empower you. This is, I guess, the one missing piece of the puzzle, right? There's not enough things empowering you in your daily life. This is how we can continue this walk throughout the week, because you got to keep in your head, like you said, I didn't get saved until I wasn't baptized until 2020, but I was going to church a number of years before that. So it's been like, I've been saved now for 4 years. But before that, even, it's maybe like 6.5 years, 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
So most of my life was spent, 30 plus years were spent without thinking that way, without thinking about Jesus and how I'm supposed to be living for him on a daily basis. So so it's so much easier to let everything else in whenever that's not like a central thought in your mind. So yeah, you get totally distracted throughout the day. I mean, we still do. It's so easy to get distracted so quickly, especially we're on this podcast right now. I have 3 screens in front of me. Distraction is, like, it's good for productivity, but it's not good for being mindful on a constant basis. And to be able to have something with Follower of One, like where you're constantly recentering yourself to pray for people and to keep Jesus at the center of the conversation, is going to help you stay focused and stay on track. So I don't know. I love hearing this. And I've had a couple podcasts prior to this, with people who have similar mindsets, with strategies of how to take the gospel out into the workplace, out into the marketplace, because expecting people to come to you does not work as well as just go to other people. You go to them, much more likely to have impact and show up where they're at. So if people want to get involved with what you're doing, they can go to marketplacemissiontrip.com and at marketplacemissiontrip.com, they can request an invitation for the next mission trip, which is that all over Zoom?
Yes, we actually do. We do 6 of those a year, and yes, those are all Zoom based. So what happens is you join our community where you get the course, the 10 devotionals, and also the events, the Zoom calls are also in that area in our community. So everything that you need is right there.
When is the next one?
The next one is July the 14th. They start on us with a Sunday afternoon kickoff call.
Cool. Okay. Very cool. I love this. So marketplacemissiontrip.com, right there, request the invitation for the next mission trip. How do you see what vision has God given you for this moving forward? And what transformation have you seen from people who have gone through this?
Yeah, so the transformation I've seen, it's really kind of interesting. Many people, the first time they do the marketplace mission trip, are surprised by how difficult it is because of those distractions you were talking about. Our world and our environment are designed to kind of keep our minds off of this, just like why there's no windows in any casino, right? They don't let you know what time of
or a
day it is
clock.
for anything in the casino. They just want you to keep gambling. Satan has built this world so that we don't see what's going on. We don't think about the amount of time that we've spent doing something. And the next thing we know, a bunch of time's passed.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest kind of limitation that we found is people are surprised at how things happen. There's spiritual warfare going on and all that. Our dream is that eventually individuals who take this mission trip will talk to their churches and think about this in their small group teams and things like that, because it's just a little too weird of an idea for everybody to just embrace it by me buying a billboard on the side of the highway. It has to be first person. And we've done it now with 6 churches and with 3 ministries. And with all but one of those, it was someone who took the trip before that got that organization to do it. So they had done it before in one of our 6 annual trips, and then went to their pastors or went to their small group and said, hey, we ought to do this, and done it. And so we're finding that a lot of people are doing it. My dream is that eventually there will be 1,000 churches or more that are doing this mission trip every year, or ministries that are doing this. I would invite you. We could partner on an Unstuck movement mission trip. We want to just be everybody else's lab. You don't have to build a whole shop. You can just come to Follower of One and we'll help you do the lab of go put what you're teaching to work for 2 weeks. And then you do that once a year with us. And then any donation that you make after you figured out how to do this, or a church figures out how to do this, their donations actually pay so that other churches can do it.
Amazing. I love it. I absolutely love it. It's a brilliant, obviously God created it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so good. Followerofone.org is the main website to get on the mission trips. Marketplacemissiontrip.com. Go to both of those websites. Follow Mike Henry. If they want to reach out to you personally, what's the best way to find you? LinkedIn?
Yes, I'm Mike Henry SR everywhere. So on almost every platform, if you put in Mike Henry SR Senior, you'll find me.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing today. Thank you for doing what you're doing and listening to the instructions of the Lord. And thank you so much, Mike, for being a part of the Unstuck movement.
Hey, thank you. I was trying to